Imagine the chaos of first-century warfare. Outside the walls of a besieged city, the air is thick with dust and the clash of steel. It is a brutal, hand-to-hand reality of swords, spears, and shields. The bizarre, nightmarish imagery of Revelation chapter 9 reveals a precise, tactical account of the Roman siege of Jerusalem in 70 AD. While often viewed as a cryptic future prophecy, the text functions as a historical record of a documented siege. In verse 5, John specifies that the invading force was constrained. He writes, quote, "To them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months." He adds a chilling detail in verse 6, "And in those days shall men seek death, and shall not find it." The text defines this apocalyptic force by the agonizing entrapment and psychological suffering it inflicts on the besieged citizens. The primary horror here is the duration and intensity of the experience. That 5-month window maps directly to the historical timeline. Following a brief pause in military operations due to political turmoil in Rome in 69 AD, Titus assumed command and locked down Jerusalem in a grueling siege that lasted exactly 5 months. Once the Romans breached the first 2 outer walls, the population was completely trapped. Inside, zealot factions burned their own food supplies to force the inhabitants to fight, causing starvation and disease to quickly overtake the city. This physical weight of the destruction remains visible today. These massive limestone blocks at the Temple Mount were cast down to street level as Roman engineers systematically dismantled the city's infrastructure. For those starving inside, the prophecy that they would seek death became a reality of the landscape. The historian Josephus records that anyone attempting to flee the famine was captured by Roman patrols, scourged and crucified in plain sight of the walls. Death fled from the citizens because a quick end was unavailable. Survivors were left with the choice of wasting away from hunger inside the walls or enduring agonizing public execution outside them. From the suffering of the citizens, John's vision transitions to the leadership directing the invaders. Verse 11 identifies their leader. They had a king over them, whose name is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon. Both ancient terms translate directly to the title destroyer. Through the historical lens of the 70 AD siege, this figure is identified as Vespasian, the emperor who orchestrated the initial campaign against Judea. The name Vespasian carries a linguistic resonance, translating to wasp, which aligns with the stinging, locust-like imagery John uses to describe the destructive force. When Vespasian returned to Rome to claim the throne, his son Titus assumed the role of the destroyer, taking command of the legions to finish the blockade. To the trapped Jews of the first century, the demonic entities of the apocalypse took the form of the armor-clad Roman leadership blockading their gates. The investigation of this force continues with its geographic origin. In verses 13 through 15, a voice from the altar commands the release of the 4 angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. This aligns with historical troop logistics. Rome gathered its eastern auxiliary forces from the regions near and beyond the Euphrates River before sweeping into Israel. Verse 15 assigns a specific purpose to this force, to slay the third part of men. This phrasing utilizes the prophetic formula established in the book of Ezekiel. The prophet was instructed to divide his hair into thirds, 1 part to be burned, 1 struck with a sword, and the final third scattered to the wind. Revelation employs this established prophetic math to define the Roman invasion. The third part of men functions as a theological geometry, presenting the siege as a calibrated, divinely appointed judgment rather than random violence. John then describes the scale and machinery of this judgment. Verses 16 through 19 detail an army of 200,000 riding horses with lion-like heads, breathing fire, smoke, and brimstone. The number 200 million served as a symbolic expression in the ancient world for a terrifying, mathematically innumerable force. The description of fire and smoke issuing from the mouths of these beasts points to the industrialized nature of the Roman military. These descriptions align with the heavy wooden Roman siege engines, the catapults and ballistae used to breach the city walls. Legionaries used these machines to launch massive stones and flaming projectiles into the city, creating literal clouds of fire and sulfurous smoke. Josephus records the final carnage. Roman soldiers slaughtered indiscriminately and burned the city so thoroughly that blood of the slain extinguished the fires. This stone relief documents the physical reality of the temple's end, showing the sacred menorah carried away into slavery as the spoils of war. John's apocalyptic vocabulary captured the terrifying scale of first-century incendiary warfare. The focus of the vision eventually shifts from the smoking ruins of the city to the moral state of the survivors. Revelation 9 concludes in verses 20 and 21 with a sobering statement, "The rest of the men repented not." Despite witnessing a documented, prophesied judgment, the factions within the city continued their internal violence and corruption to the end. This highlights the stubbornness of the human condition. Devastating tragedies, both ancient and modern, frequently lead to a rejection of faith rather than widespread reflection. Within this framework, Revelation 9 found its fulfillment in the documented suffering of 70 AD. The true weight of Revelation 9 lies in humanity's capacity to look into the literal fires of judgment and refuse to turn back.